before, I'm kind of a slob. As a stay-at-home mom, this ends up being kind of a mixed blessing. I'm able to function with a pretty high level of mess, with 4 tiny tornadoes tearing up the house around me. However, it's kind of my job to take care of my home, and I have almost no natural skill set for that. I remember once early on in our marriage, my husband asked me if I could make it a priority to clean out our microwave that was splattered with old leftovers. And I was shocked that he would ask me something like that. Who cleans microwaves? I honestly didn't know that was a thing. Now, you're looking around me here and you're probably thinking I'm exaggerating. Look how cute this place is. Let me let you in on a little secret. This is not my house. Trust me, you don't want to see my fingerprinted walls, my kitchen table that has entire sections of stain missing, or my sectional couch that used to be beige. I've been learning a lot about lists. I hate lists. Since my childhood, I have hated lists with the burning fire of 1,000 suns. However, I'm never more productive than when I have a list. I think lists are biblical. God gave Moses a list in the law on Mount Sinai. The 10 Commandments were a list of the way to live, that we would live in a way that is pleasing to God, where life works the best for us. I would love to just live in my natural habitat, which for me is wearing my pajamas, being in bed with my iPhone and my Kindle and a cup of coffee. But if I did that, then my family would also revert to their natural habitat, which would be wild and messy, screaming, and only ever able to find one of their shoes. So when I look at the Bible, and I've been studying in Exodus, I've been learning about the law. And just recently I found this passage in John chapter 1, verses 16 through 18. For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side. He has made him known. What this is saying is that the law isn't enough to make us good. Not being a murderer or not sleeping around don't make you a good person. Just like having a clean house doesn't make me a good mom. Let's suppose for a minute that I was able to make an ultimate list for myself, that I would be the most productive person I could be, to have the cleanest house that I could possibly have, clean to hospital standards, a list that was so detailed it listed down to me scrubbing the grout with a toothbrush. Even if I was able to follow that list to a T, would that make me a good wife? Would it make me a good mom? No, because being a good mom and a good wife includes a lot more than just being able to have a clean house. It's similar when we look at the law. But this is hard for us to understand because so many of us have been trained that Christianity is about following rules, about being good people. Verse 17 alludes, though, that it's not enough for us to just follow the law. Otherwise, why would Jesus have had to come with his grace and his truth? Romans 3:20 spells it out really specifically. For by works of the law, no human being will be justified in his sight, since through the law comes knowledge of sin. The purpose of the law is to point out our sin, not to serve as this yardstick that we judge ourselves or others to see if we measure up. Well then, out with Moses and in with Jesus, right? Rules are for fools. Not quite. It's not saying here that the law was bad and we got rid of it, and then instead we get Jesus who is good and has grace and truth. What it's doing is listing decisive events in the history of salvation. Moses received the law, Jesus comes bringing grace and truth. Matthew 5:17, Jesus himself says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." We are called not to just follow rules, but to live out those rules full of grace and truth, looking to Jesus as our ultimate example. Jesus embodies the law. Jesus lived a life that was exactly how God would have lived it. Verse 18 of our text says, "No one has ever seen God. The only God who is at the Father's side, he has made him known." Now, that can sound a bit confusing. The only God who is at the Father's side. Who is that referring to? Jesus. So we could paraphrase that to say, no one has ever seen God, but Jesus has made him known. Jesus acted as God exactly. In any situation that he faced, he embodied how God would want that situation lived out best. In Hebrews 1:3, it calls Jesus the exact imprint of God's nature. That he was our living, breathing law, full of grace and truth. This is a call for us to be disciples of that, for us to look to Jesus, that he would show us how we can live out the law correctly. This is the difference between someone telling us what to do and someone showing us how to do something. I can tell my kids I expect them to have the playroom clean, and I can tell them, go clean the playroom, and they can get in there and get into the mess, if they can even get in the door at all, of books and dolls and Legos, and become completely overwhelmed to the point that they want to quit before they've even started. Now, if I walk into that mess with them and I show them what my expectations look like and I give them tools for how to clean the room effectively, then they can accomplish the purpose, the task set before them in getting the playroom clean. It's like what Jesus does for us. God comes into this world, walks into our mess of life, and shows us the way he expects us to live. What we need is to follow that example, to learn about that example, which we can do through studying his word. We need to know him more in our study, in our prayer life, that those things that we're learning would overflow from us and would impact every interaction of our daily lives. So, it sounds like a lot of work, but what's in it for us? In verse 16 it says, "For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace." An inexhaustible supply of grace. Absolutely never-ending grace. That from his fullness, he fills us with any place we're lacking. That he makes us the people that we're called to be. That we are not required to live up to this standard out of an obligation that we could never be good enough to. But instead, we get to choose to live a right life because we want to please the God that loves us more than anything. We cannot live the lives that we're created for by only being moral rule followers. Our obedience to the law has to flow naturally out of our lives, mingled with the grace and truth that we see exemplified in Jesus as he walked here on this earth. Jesus doesn't call us to anything that he wasn't already willing to do. He gave up his life for us. May we willingly choose to give up our lives for him.